Next up in Masterclass, we're going to touch on a little subject that we think needs improvement on your side. And that's because it was a bit of a monumental failure on the CWA challenge. You had difficulties, not only with the scones, but with the cakes.
They are supposed to be evenly sized.
What I'm going to make is an all-time classic and quite a complicated French pastry, or cake, or gâteau, called opera, which is made with Joconde, buttercream and ganache.
Sounds delicious.
You're going to go and take a break while while I cook?
Because it sounds really difficult. We'll leave you to it.
Now, masterclass wouldn't be a masterclass unless I have a little helper. And I need somebody who had big troubles with their sponge. So, Callum, up here. Right, the first thing we're going to do is make a Joconde, or an almond sponge. So first up, I want you to come over here. And I've got 4 eggs in here, and I want you to whisk those up until light and creamy. Go. On full? On full? Yeah. So what we're looking for is a really aerated egg mixture. They're whole eggs, and it will form a foam. And this is much like a genoise, which is a really light sponge. Now, while Callum's doing that, I'm going to sift some dry ingredients. And in French cooking, there's a thing called templeton, which is an equal quantity of icing sugar and almond or hazelnut meal, 150 grams of each. And what I'm doing is sifting it, because I want to take out any husk from the almond, any lumps that have accumulated inside that icing sugar. And then I've got 60 grams of plain flour. Not a lot of flour. This acts as the stabiliser in the sponge. That's it, Callum, keep going. And the aeration's crucial here, because what's going to happen is when we put the dry ingredients in, it's going to knock the air out. And what I want you to do next is do the same with the egg whites. All right, so we've got 2 aerations here. A little bit of sugar. There's 4 egg whites and 35 grams of sugar. Now, what I've done is add a little bit of sugar at the start. So I put about 1/3 in, and then I rain in the other 2/3 of the sugar. If you put all the sugar in at once, what it'll do is it'll flatten the structure, and it won't aerate. So in there. That's about right. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's good. So it's soft peaks. Beautiful. So just tap that and pop that on the side. So we've got our 2 aerated mixtures, the eggs and the egg whites. Next, we're going to put this sifted dry ingredient into the egg yolks. And you can see why now I'm using a bit of paper. There you go. You keep mixing gently. Next, we're going to put in fat. So you realise this is knocking it down. And again, the fat will knock that down. So there's about 30 grams of butter. Fold that in. Fully mixed in, nearly.
Almost. Yeah, I think
that's it. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's good.
So now we've knocked it down within dry ingredients. We're now going to lift it back up with the egg whites, right? Okay?
Okay.
You need to get into the fact that you've got to turn the bowl. See?
Okay, yeah.
And when you turn the bowl like that, see how easy it is to incorporate?
Yeah.
And just do it a few more times until it's incorporated. You're doing a good job. Excellent job. Feels nice and light?
Yeah, I think we've kept most of the air in.
OK. So next up, we've got to get this Joconde mix onto the baking paper. And we need enough on there so that we can spread. This is really only, I'd say, a couple of millimetres thick.
So does this rise at all when it's baking?
It doesn't rise a lot, but it rises enough just to give you that lovely sweet almondy mixture. You pick this one up, we'll pop this on, and then we'll pick yours up. Just tension it a bit, that's it. Is that one? All right, pop that one in there like that, OK? Now, you can pop all those in the oven. They're going to go in at 200 degrees, and they'll only take about 4 to 5 minutes, to be honest. And what you're looking for is a tinge of golden brown across the sponge and around the edges. All right, Callum? Let's see how those babies come out. Thanks. Off you go.
Thank you.
OK, so that's the sponge, or the Joconde made, for the gâteau opera. So next up, we're going to make coffee buttercream. Now, a little buttercream struggle was Marion. Remember? That pink buttercream for your Napolitan cake.
The first batch looked really runny, so I just ditched it because I didn't like the look of it.
Come up here and I'll show you another technique. So I want you to come around this side.
Okay.
So there's 300 grams of sugar. Pop that in there. All right, and all we're going to do is we're going to boil this. So I just want you to moisten that sugar with some of that water. You might not need all of it, but the water is there just to sort of retard the cooking. So it's dissolving the sugar and just allowing it to come together. And then you can pop the candy thermometer on the edge and pop it on the gas. So what we want is to cook that sugar syrup until it hits 121 to 125 degrees. And what we're going to do is we're going to cook these egg yolks in a sabayon with that sugar. So there's 5 egg yolks in there, so pop those in a bowl. And I want you to whisk those in exactly the same way as Callum whisked the whole eggs before, so it becomes an airy mass. So when you're boiling sugar, you just need to make sure you clean the sides of the pot down with water just once in a while to make sure that no crystallised sugar that's flicked up onto the side of the pot falls back into your boiling syrup. Because if that happens, the risk is that it's going to crystallise the whole amount or the whole mass, and that happens. That's cool. That's probably enough. Just tap it, but keep that because you're going to use that in a second. Right, sponges should be ready. Let's have a squiz in the oven. Ooh, look at those babies. That's perfect. And then what I do is, while they're hot, is I just cut them into size, because what happens is the edges are a little crisp on the jicante, because as it cools, they'll get more difficult to actually cut because they'll shatter. OK, so next job, now our sugar's at 125 and at softball, is to drizzle this into the egg yolks. And we're just going to go in a very thin stream. And effectively, that's just going to cook those egg yolks. So what we've got to do is we've got to whisk that until it's cool, so it's the same temperature as the butter, all right? So to do that, rather than using this machine, we'll transfer that to the mix master, flick it on, and just let it rotate and cool the mixture down, and then we'll add little blobs of that butter, all right? So that's quite hot. Feel that, right?
Yeah,
and
it's quite hot.
Because the sugar's 121 degrees, so that'll do it, right? So pour that in there and then stick it on. And we've got to cool it down until it's the temperature of the butter, which is not 121 degrees. All right, so just pop it on the machine and let it whir away for a couple of minutes, and we'll get ready to pop that butter in. Beautiful. That's it. And we'll just let it do its thing until it reduces in temperature. So that's started to cool down. It may be a little bit warm, still a bit of temperature on there, but hopefully by the time we start putting the butter in, it'll knock the temperature out of it. So we'll soon find out if it works, won't we? So the idea is just to knock lumps into that beautiful silky mousseline or sabayon, right? And I'll show you, because you don't want to get it knocked into there, right? So just at a distance, all right? And I'm praying that it's not too warm. Try and keep your spoon out of the bowl.
Okay.
So there's a total of 500 grams of butter going into that mixture. You've got to be careful that the temperature of the butter and of the mousseline, which is the sabayon, you know, the egg yolks and sugar, are consistent, are the same. Go on, have a little taste. Go on. Little finger in there. Is that the smoothest buttercream you've ever had in your life?
Oh, wow.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
That's really good.
It's good. OK, final touch to this. I'm not going to show you how to do it because it's really easy. This is coffee essence, all right? And I've made that just by pushing through some espressos through a machine. It's about 6 espressos through there. And I put about 100 grams of sugar, and then I've reduced it until it becomes glossy. And just this massive, smell that, massive kick of coffee. So that's the coffee essence, and it's going to go in 2 things. It's going to go into the buttercream. I've also made a simple sugar syrup, which is equal quantities of sugar and water. And to that, I'm going to add the coffee essence. So I've got a coffee syrup that I'll soak into the sponges. So you get a double hit of coffee. So, Marion, if you put in about 3 generous teaspoons of that coffee essence. Right, so pop the machine down, give it a whir, and then I need you to taste it just to make sure it's a really good coffee flavour. Looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah,
that's really good. All right, that'll do. And obviously, by making that coffee essence, you've put in a concentrated kick of coffee flavour. Marion, do you think you can make buttercream again?
Yep.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Gary.
Right. So our gâteau opera is on the way. We've made the jicante, the little almond sponge. We've made the coffee buttercream. All I've got to do is make ganache and a little coffee syrup, and we can start to build. And I will need a volunteer for that one, so beware.